Hey, Joe.
What in the world? This Paul Sharpe, this is a solo opening.
Hey, it's my podcast too.
Whoa, not today. Today,
What do you mean not today?
you're not hosting. Get out.
You want me to leave?
Out.
You want me out?
Out of the
Are
opening.
you sure?
I'll see you in the
Well,
next part.
You're going to host this by yourself.
The opening, this is just me and the audience. You need to wait till your section. You're
Okay,
out.
well, audience, thank you for having me. I will see you next time, I guess. Bye.
All right, audience, now that it's just you and me, I want to welcome you to a special episode of The Story, TGIF and... Oh, I'm so used to Paul being here for this part. Oh, shoot, come back, Paul. No, I'm just kidding. TGIF and Born Christian Toastmasters. In this episode, the new presidents, we're interviewing your co-host, my good friend Paul Sharpe, and another familiar face, Eric Ma, our new presidents. Stay tuned.
Joe, now can I speak?
You can finally speak. It's good.
Oh, that's great. My name is Paul.
Welcome, Paul. Welcome to The Story, TGIF and Born Christian Toastmasters.
Hosted by Paul and Joe.
Hosted by Joe and Eric. Eric, welcome.
I'm a host today.
Well, now I'm very confused because Paul's here as a guest, and I don't know what's
Wait, am I a guest?
You're definitely a guest.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good news for me, I suppose.
So, dear audience, this
Dear
has been
audience.
a very confusing episode for me because when I planned this episode, The New Presidents, I wasn't expecting to, one, see Eric Ma again.
Sorry.
No, it's good to see you again. What am I saying? And two, to not have a co-host because Paul's president. What are you guys doing?
But here's the question I have for you. As you said, when I planned this episode,
Okay, when we planned this episode, to be totally fair.
well, to be totally fair, yeah, when we planned this
Dang,
episode,
it's true.
there's no I in team.
That's right. As our viewers and listeners know, we tend to have a typical question we ask our guests.
Sure.
And we've asked Eric Ma before, and that's a question that we have to ask you because you're now a guest.
Oh, dear.
And so, Paul, what was your introduction to Toastmasters in 5 sentences or less? No, just kidding. It doesn't have to be 5 sentences or less. But Eric Ma will judge you if you go too long.
My introduction to Toastmasters was actually in a long time ago in 1988.
Wait, are you kidding me?
No. Toastmasters currently has something called the YLP, the Youth Leadership Program, and they had that at my high school. And
Wait,
so,
I don't know this story at all. Oh my God. Okay, go.
So and it was a selection process, and they only chose about 20 boys out of this senior high school class to join, and I was one of those boys selected to do the Youth Leadership Program. And so we'd meet one weekday night. I can't remember if it was a Tuesday or Thursday night. And in that speech, I had to give, in that meeting, I had to give 3 speeches throughout the whole program.
Okay, that's 5 sentences.
Oh, good. Thank you for counting.
Okay.
But then I had a very bad experience with public speaking, and after that, I just didn't really want to do it. And then 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, my late wife, Queenie, told me that she was attending Toastmasters with a guy called Lester Lynn.
Ah, yes. I remember Lester from episode 1.
Exactly. And the episode we will have sometime on with Casey. Yeah. And she was attending for about a year. And every Friday night, every second Friday night, she'd say, "Oh, come along. I said, "Nah, it's boring." So I'd go always find something else to do and ride my bike or something. And she'd go do Toastmasters.
Okay.
And then my mother came to town. And my mother got stuck in Taipei with visa issues for about 3 months.
I remember that.
Yes, you do. And then they had the charter meeting for TGIF and Born or TGIF, not Born.
Yeah, Born didn't exist yet.
And Queenie said to us, "Oh, it's a big thing. They're having a dinner. Would I like to go? Would we like to go?" Yeah. And then that's when I went to TGIF. And I never intended to go back. But then they had another meeting the following week. And the mother said, "Oh, let's go to TGIF. There's nothing else to do on Friday night." So then we went. They went another time. And then I did my first table topics. And then somehow I got to be the deputy VP within 5 months.
Wow. I didn't know the youth leadership program story. Eric, did you know this story?
I've never heard of it.
Do you think he just made it up? We would say that.
He's good.
Wow.
I'm good at what?
Making stuff up. Yeah, it looks real. Like
It-
it's genuine.
Yeah, like a genuine story. That was
I
good.
believe it.
No, I believe it too. That's really what I find funny about your introduction, especially the second half of it with Queenie getting you to a dinner, is because it's eerily similar to how I was introduced to Toastmasters. Because the following year, you lured
Yeah.
me with the same exact dinner. Dang.
Yeah, and that was the beginning. And then when I joined, they asked, Lester was challenging, and that's, something we're going to talk about a little bit, so I will introduce it now. When Lester challenged me, at that time, we had the previous system, the common communicator system, and Lester was like, you should give 10 speeches in a year. And I thought, you know what? At that end of term dinner, they're going to allow people to finish their CC path.
Right.
And so I joined in the January. I gave my first speech, I think it was February or March. And then I committed myself to being on that stage at the final dinner for the CC to do my C10 speech.
I was there. I watched it.
Yeah. And so within the first 5 months of joining Toastmasters, I'd already done 10 speeches.
Oh, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Not going to
so,
lie.
Yeah.
All right. So, Eric, how would you rate that introduction on a scale of 1 to 5?
Probably 25, because that's about how many sentences he spoke.
Thank you for keeping
But they
count.
were good sentences.
They were good. They were good.
I'm actually really impressed. These are some very good sentences. I'm sure the audience is as well. This is great. No, welcome to the show, Paul,
Thank you.
as a
Thank
guest.
you, Joe, for having me as a guest.
This is just really funny. And
Yeah.
again, totally unexpected. But
Indeed.
I am very blessed, and I'm actually quite glad that we're having this episode and that the two of you are taking this leadership role. And I'm going to talk about that in just a
Wait.
moment.
We taking a leadership role?
This is new to me, too.
What leadership roles are we taking, Joe?
Oh, sorry. This is a trap. The episode's called The New President.
The new presidents.
And because you're here as my guest, that means you're the new president. Hi, welcome. So, Eric, we are at the end of the term, and I know in an episode that it's a bit of a long story, but we lost the footage, but we have the audio, so you've seen it on YouTube. You've been here before, obviously, but I want to
Yes.
ask you now that you're basically at the end of your term as a TGIF president. Your term's been kind of interesting because you took over for one president in the previous term. So you've done like a
Year and a half.
Term and a half?
Maybe not full half.
term and a quarter?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But I want to ask, like, what are maybe a few lessons that you've learned as you've come to the end of your TGIF presidency?
Well, I think...
That sounds like a painful lesson.
No.
Well, I think.
Well, I've changed over the years, and I used to be quite hands-on and very, this time around I was more kind of hands-off, and I let a lot of the leaders do their thing.
Yeah.
I just kind of guide them, and I think it's been good, because I think what happened, a lot of people were burned out from the previous team. So when I came in, a lot of people were kind of burned out already too.
Right.
So I didn't want to put more pressure on them. So I've kind of learned to be a good leader, you have to trust your officers and people that you're working with.
I love that you're looking at me because I was on that team. I feel the trust.
Yeah,
I feel
I
the
trust you. I
Yeah.
trust you.
Oh no, I think that's true. Burnout is an issue that a lot of Toastmaster clubs experience. I mean, Paul looks great today, but Paul served as a TGIF president and then a Born to Shine president, and then 8 years passed, and now you're being president again. It took 8 years for Paul to get over his burnout.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. We did have a tradition in the club that we don't want to have repeat presidents.
Oh, this is a really good point, and actually, maybe we can pause and focus in on this a little bit. So,
Sure,
Paul,
sure,
go ahead, please.
So the reason why I am taking on the role, and maybe Eric can also add some color to this, but I was sitting at home on a Thursday night and I got a phone call from Eric and he says, "Tag, you're it."
I didn't say those words.
No, you didn't. But he basically said, "I would like you to be the president of TGI for the next term because."
And I got no right away.
Really? He knowed you that quickly?
He knowed me. I wasn't even finished with my question. And he knowed me.
I'm loving this episode already because watching the two of you
So
work
then,
is
Eric, you
fantastic.
carry on the story. You had the color.
Okay. And I said, wait, let me finish my question.
What?
And then
What?
I know how much Paul loves both clubs, but
I
I know
do.
how much more a little bit more he loves Born to Shine because it's his baby.
Oh, I totally agree with
Yeah.
you.
So I knew I had a trick up my sleeve. I knew it was going to work on him. And I said, Born to Shine is having trouble finding an officer team. And I said, if you become the next president of TGIF, I will become the president of Born to Shine. And that wasn't just it. And I said, you and I can work together and do some things. And he didn't say no.
Well,
He was quiet.
oh, wow. And that's when you could feel a shift a little bit.
Yeah, I could feel his brain just go. Whoop.
Was that the turning point for you? The partnership, the teamwork?
Well, so the next day we met at Ikari before the TGIF meeting,
Ah, yes. Classic spot to meet.
and we had a long conversation.
Mm.
So as Eric said, we should work together, and I said to him we should have some common goals and some common objectives between both clubs. There's no point one club having one objective because Born and Shine and TGIF should be close clubs. We should be interconnected close clubs, two communities working closely together because that's who we are. That's always been Born to Shine's DNA, and I felt that that's been lost in the last year or so. People from TGIF don't know people from Born to Shine. People from Born to Shine don't know TGIF. So the goal is so we laid out some conditions. We are going to raise those concerns with our clubs.
Right.
So I spoke to him about that, but I also had a condition for Eric.
He had a lot of conditions.
But what was the one condition?
Actually, his condition was quite personal, and it was quite interesting. He said that in order for him to agree to do this, that him and I need to sit down once a week and do Bible study.
Oh, yeah. Paul's really big into Bible studies.
Yeah.
And I said, I gotta see you like more than once a week because I see him at TGIF or Born to Shine.
Right.
I gotta see him for Bible study.
Now you got to see him for Bible study.
So I knowed him. I knowed him right away.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
No.
I said yes. I said yes right away.
He said yes immediately. He did not hesitate.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm on the officer team for TGIF, and
By the way, I'm still
members-
looking for a VP. You know.
So I'm continuing the conversation. Anyway, I remember we were discussing finding a president for TGIF, and we're throwing out all sorts of names. I mean,
Did you throw out Bob?
yeah, even Bob.
Bob's a good name.
Bob made it out on the list. And I remember Eric Ma being like, okay, everyone, stop. Just stop. And I guess that's when you started texting Paul.
Yeah.
And
Are you in the officer meeting when you were texting me?
no, we were having a
We
line
were in the
chat.
chat.
And there was this kind of shift here. And I remember being very surprised because, like Paul mentioned, TGIF and up until this point, Born to Shine, they kind of have this unspoken tradition. And that unspoken tradition is a president only serves once. And it's a one and done. Eric Ma started to break the mold because he's 1.25 of a term presidency.
True.
Oh, that makes you like a trailblazer. You've like started new movements in the club by having Paul come
Well,
in.
it all started when I was Kim Jong Un. That's when it all
Yeah,
really
supreme
started.
leader.
Yeah.
I feel like if we're able to in post to put a picture up of Eric with that would benefit this video.
I think we can do that.
Now, so Paul, why do you think TGIF and Born to Shine had that tradition of one person, one term as president?
So there have been clubs in Taiwan, and the one I can think of offhand is Prestige Toastmasters. I think they're close to their 40th anniversary, and they've never had a repeat president.
Wow.
And there's just generally this tradition in Toastmasters where, it's always good to hand the baton down to the next generation to raise new leaders. I was also deeply inspired by when I went to my first conference for Toastmasters conference in 2014. I remember going to a workshop, and I cannot remember the lady's name for the life of me, but she was a DTM from Hong Kong Toastmasters. And she spoke about when she joined Toastmasters in the United States, and she said she went to somewhere which I should imagine something like New England or something. I have no idea where, but somewhere she walked into a Toastmasters club, and basically she walked in. She was the only person under like 30, under 40, under 50. She was the only female. She was the only Asian. And she walks into this club with all these white guys who are all over the age of 50. And she just joined shortly before the new term started. And she walks in, and then they're looking for the next president. And they said, well, you just joined. You're the new president. And she's like, what? Like, I'm not even 30. You guys are all like over 50 or 60. Said, yeah, you're the one who needs to grow. You're the one who needs to move. And so that's always been generally tradition in Toastmasters to find people that we want to grow in those leadership positions. I'm not sure why or what's happened, and that's something we can get into a little bit. But with COVID, my own personal loss with losing Queenie. I think a lot's happened to the club in the last couple of years, which has kind of like not done that. And so maybe we need to reestablish foundations and move forward. And so that's why I kind of, okay, if I can reestablish foundation with Eric, building the good foundation that's already there in Born and Shine, and then helping me reestablish foundation in TGIF, I think it's okay.
Speaking of foundation, we have a fantastic episode 1.
I know.
Sorry,
I know.
I shouldn't. What am I doing? So to go back to this, and Eric, what made you want to reach out to Paul right away? Because I know, like, you've also got like Lester. Maybe you could have twisted Douglas Gilmartin's arm harder. What?
I think Doug said no immediately, right?
No, I never asked Doug. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, because I think that this is like a very big move for the club, and we're talking about moving away from a tradition. And I remember at first I was like, tradition, how can we leave it behind? What are we becoming? But actually, like, looking at you two on this couch here, like, this is really beautiful.
Thank
like,
you.
I'm actually...
We prefer handsome.
I'm sorry, handsome. This is very handsome, full of hands. But what really started to inspire you? Like, what were you seeing that made you feel like this is the plan that we should go forward with? I know this isn't on my question set, like, at all, but if you'd be willing to kind of share a little bit.
I'm like one to trust my instincts.
Yeah.
And Paul's been a huge part of my life. He's one of my closest friends here in Taipei, somebody I trust dearly, and I know I can rely on him. And I was in a situation where I couldn't get a team going, a successor team.
Yeah.
So I was in a lot of trouble. So he was the first person that popped in my head. And I think the last straw was when people were throwing out all those names.
I know. It was starting to get random. I mean, yeah. Paul's joking about Bob, but I did sort of feel like we were starting to edge closer to just, maybe there was a guest that one time.
Yeah. But
That's right.
No, that's when I called Paul, and it added a lot of clarity. I knew how I could persuade him because I know Paul.
Yeah.
And
that almost sounds manipulative, but I know it's in a good way.
Yeah, it was in a good way. It's for the clubs.
Yeah.
But I also knew I was making a sacrifice for my year as well.
Yeah, well, because Eric, really, the past year and a half, I've watched you step up and serve our club in a beautiful way. I've watched you really step up and spend a lot of time loving this club and helping to build it and to grow it. And so it's been impressive to see you be willing to carry it forward and also kind of bring Paul in to continue to help the clubs kind of grow and heal. Like, it's amazing.
Just to add on to that a little bit, when you say you were throwing out names, what does that exactly mean?
No, people were just saying like, oh, how about this person? This person can be next president. How about this one? How about that one?
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to talk.
That's not how it's done.
No. You build successors. I'm going to talk to Kiki real quick. So Kiki, your name was also on that list. I mean, literally, we were like, you just joined, but you're really cool. Okay, anyway. So I'm coming back, but that's kind of
and that's also very disturbing to me to hear that, and it's the first time I'm hearing the story, because for myself, and this is to all Toastmasters clubs out there, and to the TGIF and Born community, to lead TGIF and Born. We are often regarded as some pretty high quality clubs in Taiwan. I never like to say the best clubs in Taiwan, but we are considered to be two very high quality clubs in Taiwan. To lead these clubs is a privilege. It's not a right. It's something that we should respect. The thing that amazes me in Taiwan, especially in Taiwan, when you look at the way we select area directors, and no disrespect to you, Joe, but like we almost have to beg people to come in and do it. Whereas in Hong Kong, they actually interview people, and then they actually have elections.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's the right approach, the best approach necessarily, but it's to understand that to serve in a club like TGIF or Born and Shine, it's a privilege and it's an honor. It's not just something that we pull out of a hat and say, you're it, tag, go do whatever you want. It's something that we should be training people for. It's something that people should be doing because they genuinely love the community. And that that's, I think, what Eric and I don't mean to speak for you.
No, I felt the same way. When all those names were being thrown out, I thought
Yeah.
the position of presidency itself was being disrespected to some degree.
Right. I mean, it's kind of a unique position to be in because in the past, we've mostly had people, when they're asked, they kind of just step up and fill the role. And I've seen a lot of, I was
Well-
that way, you were that way.
Well, I think even in my first term as TGIF, so, there was a clear succession plan. It was Lester, then I joined Douglas Huang, and then it was going to be me, and then it was going to be Michelle Zhang, but then Michelle Zhang had other issues. But Michelle Zhang was there. She was going to be the president after me, and then I was going to launch Born to Shine. You were going to be the charter president of Born to Shine, Joe.
I remember,
But then when Michelle Zhang
needed
took
to kind of drop out of that.
you came in, and then you had Jenny Zhang lined up, and then I went into Born to Shine, and then Douglas Huang took over from that, and then after that we had a little bit of disruption, but then Jenny, Tina, and we had a really good progression. Even with later on, like when Queenie came in after Alice Chin, like Alice Chin had actually spoken to Queenie before, like a long time before. So the plan was after Alice, Queenie would step up as president, and the condition of her stepping up as president was that Iris would take over, and then after Iris would be Alex Shi. So we had this like long line of succession up until Alex, but then Alex, for whatever reasons, that didn't materialize. So Jalwin stepped in, but Alex was still along the future track. And then after that, there was no succession. I said to Eric, one of the conditions, if you don't mind me sharing,
Oh, go ahead.
TGIF and Born to Shine community, this is for you.
Looking at you, TGIF, Born to Shine.
We have decided that we are going to identify the next term's officer team by September this year, or at the very latest October, and then we're going to start training you. And we're not going to be in this position ever again, and we're going to establish that tradition in TGIF and Born to Shine, and never will be in a position where we are asking people, just throwing out names at the end of a term, who can be the next president. The next presidents will be identified, and now if there want to be elections, they can, but the next term should be identified early and trained and coached and mentored, so when they step in, they know what they're doing.
One thing I really appreciate about the two of you sharing is the level of honesty.
Sure.
Because here are the things, the truth is these are all kind of quiet conversations that we share with each other about
Sure.
leadership. And people here in Taiwan in District 67 might look at TGIF and Born to Shine and be like, wow, they hit DCP. Their president's distinguished. They have champion speakers. We saw Jenny Zhang get first place in the table topics contest at the district level. By all metrics, strong clubs.
Sure.
But I think that this episode is particularly important, and I hope inspiring for our listeners and our viewers to know that even strong clubs can stumble and have moments where they need to recollect and redefine the vision.
Sure.
And I think that's very important, and I really want to thank both of you for being able to see that and make course corrections. It's great. I haven't gotten to question 3, but we're going to just take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to continue our conversation about officer teams. How do you build them? What do you look for in leadership? What's the vision for the future? I'm excited. I don't want to take notes because the pen scratch sounds will get picked up by the microphone. But audience, please take notes. I think this is going to be great. All right, see you in a sec. TGIF and Born to Shine's YouTube channel offers a host of different kinds of videos and playlists. One of my favorite playlists that Paul Sharpe, our guest for this episode, has put together is his Leaders playlist. This is an amazing collection of speeches from our past presidents, VPEs, and other really important leaders within our club. It's a great source of inspiration and some good life lessons as people share about their experiences and challenges and successes as being leaders. Go check out Born to Shine and TGIF's YouTube page and that playlist, The Leaders. All right, so we are back, and now it's time to move into my next series of questions, kind of more forward-facing. We've talked about some of the issues, how the two of you sort of picked each other and, built this partnership between the clubs to bring them closer together.
I do want to say something, actually. I forgot to mention earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Eric told me that, I'm one of his closest friends. You trust me, but the feeling is mutual.
That seems, so the feeling's mutual, close friends. Best friends?
Best means one. I don't have one best friend.
That's the safest answer I've ever heard.
True. It's true.
All right. Well, now I hope I'm everybody's best friend. Jeez. Okay, so looking forward, themes. I want to
Themes.
talk about themes, because a lot of times when a president comes in, they have sort of a theme or an idea
Yes.
for their term. So, theme for Born to Shine this year, what do you got?
I did a speech recently. The title was "To Serve is to Love,"
Yeah.
Yes, we need to post it.
and that is probably the core theme for me this year. And it's not just about the officers who serve and the officers who are living. I want everybody in the club to understand there's many ways to serve.
Right.
Not just a club. You can serve your friends, your family, God. And so I think that's important. And I want them to understand that make the club the priority as well.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, because sometimes I encounter people who they feel like they're not getting anything out of Toastmasters, but I feel like it's because the Toastmasters is so low on the priority list. It's like, well, I show up 3 times a year. Why am I not getting anything out of it? I've definitely seen that happen. Well, Paul, you're the one who taught me about presidents and themes, and, Built on Love was an initial theme that you had for TGIF. I
Well,
remember.
Built on Love came out of a workshop that Lester gave, and I just before actually he gave the workshop, I just started making the posters VPE using GIMP before Canva,
Before Canva,
like
dark days.
cutting the things there and cutting off people's heads off, and terrible posters.
was
But
so
I
hard.
just started putting the Built on Love on the posters, and then Lester noticed that and he mentioned that, so that became like the underlying core value of TGIF. And then I try to kind of brand Born to Shine, like TGIF is built on love, and love is born to shine. But love is born to shine didn't quite catch.
Right.
But themes, yeah. So when I was president way back in the day, my theme then was find the masterpiece in you.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay, I remember this now.
So it's find the masterpiece in you, because I used to really enjoy that old song that would go, I see a masterpiece in you.
Yes.
A work of art so true, right? I really like that song, and I know that's a romantic love song, but I really wanted people to just have the confidence, because at that time I just started Toastmasters, just finding my voice again. And I just really wanted people to find the masterpiece inside themselves. And that is still true today. However, my theme for the coming year is return to excellence.
Return to excellence.
And
Sounds very. There was like a president who had a similar kind of.
no, we're not making TGIF great again. We are returning to excellence.
But go ahead. So return to excellence.
Yeah, and what I've noticed in the club, for whatever reason, and there's no blame to anybody here, but for whatever reason, what I felt is that TGIF, more so than Born to Shine, has become a social club where people give speeches. It is not a place where people give speeches and lead, and then have a very active social element to that. Toastmasters, where leaders are made, where speakers are made, that should always be our primary focus. I've always said that we should, my rules of public speaking are very easy. It's like rule number 1, have fun. Rule number 2, don't be boring. Rule number 3, make me hear you. And rule number 4, be a better person. That's that. I do that on all my workshops. Yes, we need to have fun. It's Friday night. Yes, we can't be boring. It's Friday night. We got to do stuff that's fun. However, Toastmasters is about speaking, and we need to get people focused on doing that well. And the other thing that we need to get people doing well is focusing on evaluations, because actually TGIF and Born to Shine were built on evaluations, not on speeches.
That's a good point. I remember a lot of our early champions at the district level were evaluation champions.
We had 5 in a row. We had Alex Jan, and then Lester was second, and then Lester was first. Then we had you.
Yep.
And then we had Douglas Gilmartin, and then we had me.
Right, so evaluations and that.
And then Jalwin, I think, came second in evaluation at some point as well. Yeah.
Right, that analytical quality. It's interesting as you're talking about a return to excellence and how, okay, so TGIF kind of became maybe a social club where speeches happen. It's sort of like, you go to hang out at a gym.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this gym equipment looks pretty good. And you're like, oh, why am I not getting buff? Like, what's
Right.
going
Yeah,
on?
exactly right. Yeah.
Oh, I'm steering into weird territory. But I do want to say that this idea of return, though, sort of reminds me of Eric Ma's TGIF presidency, because this term to me was also a bit of a return to some of the things that TGIF used to do. And I don't know if you want to speak to a little bit of that.
Yeah, because of COVID, we lost a lot of the heritage that was part of TGIF. End of term dinner was probably the starting point. When I took over from Alex the last third of last term for TGIF presidency, we were having an officer meeting, and I remember end of term dinners were one of my favorite events.
Oh, they're
Yes,
huge.
they're fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, we planned some together, and it was excellent. I always look forward to them. And I said, "Hey, it's time to do end of term dinner, and we should do one this year." And I had a lot of pushback from the other officers.
Oh, because of COVID still, or
No, they just like, it's just too much work. We haven't done them, and just
Not enough time to prepare.
Yeah, like we're running out of time. It's too late. And I said, well, I want to do one. And so basically, we took a vote, and I had to persuade some people to take the vote. And we won by one vote.
that's
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it was like 7 officers or something, and it was like 4-3.
That's crazy. We were like one vote away from me not having an all-you-can-eat buffet on a Friday night.
Exactly.
Man. Oh,
The good news is we have one coming this year too.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
By the time this episode gets posted,
Probably
we'll
done.
probably have already done it. But I love the end of term dinner. And of course, in the first half of the episode, Paul was talking about how he came at the end of a term dinner, right, with Queenie. Was
Sure.
And then
No,
was
that was the charter dinner.
the charter dinner. Oh.
So that was October of 2013.
Mm.
And then the first end of term dinner I attended was the one with the one where Lester ended his term. I did my C10. That's when you came.
Beautiful speech.
Yes, and that is there, right? It's TGIF. Can't remember the exact name of the teach, but actually his end of term speech is right there. Build on love. Yeah, it's called Build on Love. Yeah. And yeah, just a fantastic end of term speech from Lester. Yeah, our founding father. Yeah.
Yeah. And then beyond end of term, I remember you also brought back the debates. That was another big thing.
Yep. Debates, outings.
Outings. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think what I'm hearing also, and I'm sure other clubs in Toastmasters experience the same thing, where COVID sort of caused everything to pause. And if you're not careful about succession, like Paul was talking about, I think it's easy for a club, even a really good club, to kind of break down a little bit. And it's not to like, I'm not trying to trash talk TJF, so no one come and find me on a Friday night, okay? But I think we're all kind of learning and growing and having to step back up. And it's really great to see the two of you do that. Now, part of stepping back up, this is my segue, all right, is it requires a team. I don't think one president or even, okay, yes, I get it. You're like the Wonder Twin powers activate over here with Eric Ma and Paul Sharpe coming together.
Wonder Twins.
But I don't think just the two of you by yourselves could reinvigorate a club. It takes a team. So I want to hear first from Eric. What is your team looking like, and how did you go about building it? Like, this is like you're building your basketball team or like fantasy football.
I love fantasy sports. Played it for like over 20 years. Anyways, it is kind of similar like that. I see each individual almost like a game where they have certain power levels and speed and agility and these kind of things. And
Sorry, I've never played fantasy anything. So.
Well, I'm talking about like role-playing games now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gandalf, Bilbo, Hobbits. No, okay, continue.
More
please.
like Street Fighter.
Street Fighter.
Yeah. When I look for an officer team, I look at the individual, and I think the core of it is, are they dedicated to this club?
Okay.
Do they love this club like I do and a lot of the others do? And if that answer is no, I would probably not put them on the list for now as a candidate to be an officer.
So a big thing that you're looking for is dedication.
Dedication. They have to be there. If they're not there at all, it's very hard to. It's a bad look. It's a really bad look. Yeah.
I see Paul kind of nodding and ready to go in. Paul, talk to me.
He's always nodding. He's always got something.
Yeah. My office team building is proving a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
I think we alluded to this earlier on where Eric said when he came in last term, people were burned out. And then for whatever reasons, he had to reincorporate some of the older leaders from the previous terms to, he did have a slight issue at the beginning of the term. And so some people readjusted and he had to reincorporate people who had previously served. And those people have got even more burned out now.
Well, I'd like to add with Paul
saying
please. That, it's not a lot of clubs are like, oh, what's wrong with that? People who served in the past, just have them serve again, and then they can serve again. I was in Taipei Metro. I know there's people that serve as certain things every single time.
Yeah.
Right.
Like every term they're serving as an officer. And, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not how it works at these two clubs because it's about building new leadership.
I do want to say to me, TGIF and Born to Shine, because they're Friday clubs and they really try to push to fill a venue, there is a bit more of a performance pressure, maybe. I don't know if you would agree with me, but I feel like once you're a club that's like known for being an excellent club, you want to try to give 100%.
Yes.
At least that's how I felt as an officer.
Sure.
So the thing about returning to excellence and the thing about all of this is that you can serve as an officer team. So we've been talking a little bit about like the struggles of the clubs, right? A couple of things to mention is the clubs are still healthy. I looked at the TGIF roster. I think we were like 27, 28 people on the roster.
Yep.
I think Born to Shine has probably got 24, 25 on the roster, right? So like collectively we are clubs that make up, more than 50, 2 clubs make up 50 people in 2 clubs. A lot of clubs would be really envious of that. That's the first thing. The second thing is the way we built TGIF out, and the reason why there was Born to Shine is when I was serving as president of TGIF under Douglas Huang's presidency. He was the second president of TGIF. We were so successful we had to start three meetings a month for TGIF. When I took over, there were we got to the October or December and we started like just getting 3 or 4 new members every week.
Yeah, I remember
and so
those days.
because you were my VPM at the time, and then we got to February and we already up to like TGIF already had like 40 people in the club, meaning 3 times there was just not enough time to speak for people. And so then that's when I was working towards a DTM and I thought, okay, that's a very good HBL project. I spoke to Lester. Lester had done TGIF as his HBL, and that's when we launched Born to Shine. But when I look back at that days, the reason why people wanted to join TGIF was because we were really good at what we did. And so, we had the entertainment element, we had the fun part, we had all that stuff. But as I say to everybody, you can go to movies, you can go to romantic dates, you can go to restaurants, you can hang out with your friends, you can ride bicycles. Last night we didn't have a meeting because it was the 5th Friday of the month. I took a walk through Taipei Technology University, Taiwan Technology University, walking past the basketball courts, people playing volleyball. There's so many things you can do on a Friday night. You got to make it fun.
Right.
But the point is, people aren't coming there just for fun. They're coming there to grow. And when they saw what we were doing, they were like, we want to be a part of it.
Right.
And so that's why it's so important. Building out the officer team, we need officers who are committed to that excellence. When you get officers who are committed to that excellence, you draw those people who want to be excellent. Now, I like what Eric's talking about as well. It's like to serve is to love is to serve, to lead is to love.
To serve is to love.
Yeah, to serve is to love. I love this. I love this idea because that's also something that's very core to who we are.
Right. I find that sometimes officers or anybody in volunteer work, when they start to serve and they put in a lot of time, after a while the service part becomes the focus and the love part sort of drops away, and then they feel maybe bitter about serving. Right? Like, oh, I'm giving so much and I'm tired of giving so much. But I like this idea of, when your service is empowered by your love of a club or a love of a community, that whole dynamic I think is different. And I think that can be quite powerful. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine. Yeah, no, because I think to serve is to love, and I think that's so important is that we need to get people back on the right track here, thinking about this in terms of, number one, how do we become good? And number two, becoming good, helping people grow.
Yeah.
Helps me grow. And that's why we built the clubs on evaluations, because when you're evaluating speeches, you're growing more than you know.
Now, I don't have this listed as a question, but recently I was talking. I remember. It was during the district conference. It was the keynote speaker. She was talking about an issue that comes up in Toastmasters is we talk about the word excellence. And the word excellence means a lot of different things to different people across different cultures. And I would be curious if the two of you would be willing to give either a definition or an example of what you would say excellence is. And when you say return to excellence, what exactly do you mean? And I think that this is helpful, to a wider audience to really come to grips with what you're proposing. Big question. Eric's nodding. He's got the nod initiative, so I'm going to start with Eric.
Excellent requires preparation, and it requires dedication. And it's not just something that you feel like, oh, well, I know what I'm doing. I've seen it before. I can just come in and wing it. That is the complete opposite of excellence. Even if you wing it and you do a good job, you could have done better, way better, if you had prepared and spent time doing something.
Okay,
it's not a definition, but that's I think that's
an element,
a huge element of it.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah,
like people come in and they're don't want to be time or R counters. Like, why not? Like, how do you prepare to be an R counter that's done every week? How do you prepare for that role in a unique and special way? How do you do that role well? How do you present that role well? Like, that preparation is so important. But people think, oh, just be the R counter. Get up there, just say the same. Oh, I'm the R counter. I'm here to catch your double clutches and your unnecessary words like But how do you present that in a unique way? You got like 1 minute.
Right.
How do you do that in a special way? I was timer at some clubs. I didn't, because Eric wasn't there, but I won most humorous speaker as the timer.
What? That's impressive.
Our counter. Remember Joan? She came once, and she came as the
Bear.
R bear. Yeah, she dressed as the R bear.
Oh,
yeah, and the one
yes.
with the least R's would get like a big hug from
Bear
the bear.
hug.
We gotta bring that back.
Oh my goodness. Get the costumes. No, what I'm like that I'm hearing,
Yeah.
one is that excellence requires preparation at all times.
Even the smallest roles.
And then two, that excellence goes down to the smallest roles. And how if you're really going to go for excellence, it can't just be you've got a great looking president who's super handsome. We've got that at
Well,
TGIF
that's born to
Spain,
shine, not TGIF.
and Born to Shine.
Got that Born to shine next to him.
But that it requires it even in the small roles, and then maybe even especially in the small roles.
But I also think in the leadership, and I've got a personal story. I met Eric during my presidency at TGIF.
Right.
And I used to, it's a Premier Club. We were doing pretty well. People were coming, and I was just so lackadaisical in the way. I was coming in a pair of sandals, jeans, T-shirt, and Eric just took me aside. And I don't quite remember the exact words he said to me, but he said, "Why are you dressed like a tramp?"
A hobo?
Tramp. No, I remember what I said to you.
What did you say?
I said, your last name is Sharpe.
Yeah.
You got to dress sharper.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
and I'm thankful for that, because then I did start to not today, but
You're
I
in
did start-
your guest outfit. It's
exactly.
Okay.
But when I go back and look at the videos from those times, because we started making videos around that time, like I started to wear proper dress shirts. There was a point where I started to wear suits. When I look back at those pictures and when I look back at those videos, I'm so glad he told me that, because number one, it set a stand for the club, and number two, it set a stand for myself. And number three, when I look back at those videos, I'm not embarrassed about the way I was looking. I was actually look at those videos and say, you know what? Not to be narcissistic or too arrogant, but
I'll
actually,
say it for you.
Yeah.
You looked good.
Thanks, man.
You do
I was
look good
gonna
in
say,
a suit.
I was saying I didn't look too bad, and so I'm very thankful for that. But when I look at the pictures when I was wearing like the scraggly T-shirts and I was like, geez, that's awful. So thanks, mate.
Rugby.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. And so that's what excellence is also not just thinking I'm the leader and I shouldn't get feedback. It's also being open to the feedback. And when people say, hey, you're doing this wrong, you don't have to accept it all, but just take a step and think, is what they're saying making sense? And, it was easy for me. I could look in the mirror.
Oh my goodness.
Objectively, you were right, Eric.
I respect Paul a lot. Just from that little comment, he
Yeah.
changed his whole entire wardrobe.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not easy to change a man's wardrobe.
No.
And in one sentence, you did it.
Exactly. That's how powerful my words are, I guess.
Exactly.
Well, there is a
If
lot.
you know how to manipulate me.
I do. I really do.
Maybe the new president's episode's actually an episode of Eric Manipulations, and how you too, audience.
Psychological warfare from Kim Jong-un.
There's a. It'll get into I'll put a link in the description of that video. It's amazing. Anyway, so okay, we're talking about what exactly is excellence, how you define it, what you need for it. And again, I'm sorry, I'm constantly asking questions and I'm not on the card. I swear it's not just a prop. I really
It's
do
fine.
have questions.
I haven't seen the card.
Okay, but what I want to ask now is someone might ask, like, okay, well then what are the results of excellence? What does it look like for you? And what will it look like for you instilling that sort of excellence, a return to excellence, and also teaching people to service to love? What do you envision the results of that looking like? When we hit June next year, what do you expect to see? What do you hope to see? And Paul, can I start with you?
I really like the fact that we've brought back the end-of-term dinners.
Yes. Yes.
And the thing about this is that in the old end-of-term dinners, what we would do is we'd always have that competent communicator manual, and we'd find 4 people, 2 from each club, who were doing their C10 speech. What I hope it looks like is that I'm guilty of this. Like, I've been on pathways for 6 years. Since 2017, I have 2 paths. I looked at one of my paths. I'm like level 1, project 3.
Ooh.
Because I have not paid attention to pathways. I've not paid attention to where I am on it. I've given so many speeches that I could have put in there. I could be well on my way to finishing the paths. What I hope it looks like next year is that we have 4 people, 2 from each club, approaching the end of their paths, and they can stand up there and give a reflection on their path speech at the end of term dinner. Then we can actually return not only to the end of term dinners, but we can return people to focusing on achieving goals, growing in the club, saying, this is where I expect to be in a year, and then people can look back and they can reflect, and people will start to see, hey, this is a club where things are happening.
I like what you're mentioning here. I think that it's very easy, especially different system and then COVID, you sort of lose where you are with your path or what your goals are, what's happening. So I like this idea of setting the goal, hitting the goal. Very beautiful. Eric?
Yeah, I think Paul's approach is quite quantitative. You can really look at a path and how many speeches they need.
Sure.
I kind of take the excellence thing more, I look at it as more of a qualitative thing.
Oh, I like it.
And what I want to see is, one of those days, a Friday where it's pouring outside, and you know how traffic gets in Taipei when it's pouring, and people coming in and a packed room on a rainy Friday night, and maybe it's, just awful out there. And people are here excited, and we have a quality meeting and where everyone is bonding and the energy is great, the music's great. To me, that is quality.
By the way,
It's hard to measure.
Quantitative.
It is quantitative.
You can count people in the room.
That is so
I knew he was going to
pedantic.
say that. That's how I know this guy. It is true. There is quantitative aspects, but there's so many aspects of excellence that you cannot actually calculate.
But I think, but my point being is that people will come into the room if you're delivering that kind of excellence and people are focused on achieving those goals and we're giving proper feedback and people
Absolutely.
are growing.
It goes hand in hand.
Yeah,
I'm not saying what you said is not important.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm good at.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same way. I'm with my path. I'm not really paying attention to it. And Paul actually told me the other day, he said, you need to start paying attention.
Yeah,
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Stay focused. All right. Now, unfortunately, we're starting to come up toward the end of this episode.
Why? We can carry on going for 2 hours.
I mean, if you really want to continue, I'm game. I'm sure our listeners are like, I can't wait for another 2 hours.
The other day, I was watching a podcast that was 4.5 hours long.
Oh, did you watch the Star Wars Hotel podcast? I watched that one too.
Get on with your questions.
All right.
Star Wars.
Anyway, so what I want to ask is the traditional question we ask all of our
Sure.
guests. Growth from here. What are you looking for? Personal growth, Toastmasters growth from here going forward?
Well, I think I would like to finish my pathways. That's one, and try to actually stop bad-mouthing it for once.
Yep.
Because I was not a big fan of it, and I think if I pay attention to it and appreciate the things that it was meant to do, that would be one thing. And the other one is, as a leader, I continue to grow. I continue to learn how to speak more tactfully, learn how to be more like Joe in terms of not pissing people off.
Oh, man.
There's a lot of things I still need to learn as a leader, and I think it's important. So, yeah, that's those are the 2 main things, I think. And then also just more quality people. When you're a good leader, you'll attract more quality members. And I'm looking forward to seeing more new faces who, more Jennies and more Johns and all these people, instead of just like, John's not here, Jenny's not here today. It's like, we're missing so many people. But to like see every face there, and it's just like, so I love that. I love Friday nights for those kind of things.
I think that's beautiful. And I really appreciate that kind of reflectiveness you're bringing to that answer. Really good.
Thank you.
Paul Sharpe, your first time as guest answering this question. You've gotten to ask this question so often. What's your answer?
Yeah, so today I was doing a class this morning called Know Thyself. And I know some of you are not going to like this, but I was watching part of the class was a audio podcast by Jordan Peterson, who was a famous psychologist. And he was saying, one of the things to know yourself is radical humility. And I think that that is something which I hope I can embrace, because I do know that sometimes I get super impatient with people and I think they lack competency.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I want to walk up to them and tell them you're an idiot. But Joe doesn't let me.
Wait, no, I think you have before.
Actually, I probably have. It's true.
Oh my goodness, you're ruining the moment.
Have
I told you you're an idiot today. Today?
Not today.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Maybe later. But I think one of the things that I maybe it's not something I need to learn. Maybe it's something I need to embrace, is the idea of radical humility, that I don't have all the answers, but be humble, more humble, and then I can probably grow more.
Wow.
And I just like that phrase, radical humility. And in that talk, he went on, he listed a bunch of questions you can ask yourself, and he said, but the only way you know yourself is when you admit you don't know yourself. And that you have to embrace radical humility to get to that point. And maybe what I need to do, starting out at this term, is to embrace the fact that maybe I don't know as much as I think I know about leadership, and just be really, really humble about where I'm starting at again. Because I come at this, having been a very successful president for both TGIF and Born and Shine, but coming to this and saying, this is a very, very new situation that I have not encountered before, and embrace it with humility. Before we go, Joe, I want to ask you a question.
Let's hear it.
I want to know, how are you going to support
How am I going to support
the new presidents of TGIF and Born to Shine?
Actually, this has been a really big question for me, because TGIF and Born to Shine are not just clubs to me, and they're not just speech gyms to me either.
I know.
They're family.
Sure.
And both clubs. I admit that after coming back from Japan, I really lost contact with Born to Shine. I would come in and not recognize half of the Born to Shine members.
Sure.
And so...
And they wouldn't recognize you.
No.
Which is like, whoa.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So there are two things. One, as Area H1 Director, my goal is to continue to serve and support TGIF in any way possible. Whether that's helping to organize special events or just fulfill my role as a proper member should. Setting my goals, which I think I was person number 1 to send goals into Mark.
You were.
So I took it very seriously. But the other thing, too, is to reestablish my relationship with Born to Shine.
Wonderful.
And to be there. So those are two of the main ways. The other thing is I want to guide people in pathways in the DTM process. It used to be, and I'm not hating on anything, I'm just saying, it used to be the DTM path. It was in all of our Toastmasters materials. When you got a competent communicator manual, any kind of manual, the last page of it was, how do you get your DTM?
Sure, I remember that, yeah.
And now I feel like I have to Google it. And Jenny Zhang, she and I have been talking a lot about, how do you get your DTM? What do you do?
Sure.
And I want to be able to lead our members to know how to get to their DTM, why the DTM is important to really build up skills very evenly, comprehensively, and also how to get the most out of pathways, which is why I've been so insistent now on doing the DTM, because I feel like I can't mentor somebody until I've made the journey.
Sure.
And so this upcoming term, I have 2 goals. One is to start to make the journey, and 2, to guide people along the steps that I've taken so they can take better steps. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground, I think. So, Eric, Paul, thank you for making...
Do you have any closing words, Eric?
Oh, that's true. Do you have anything else you want to say to wrap this up?
Nope. I just continue to watch our channel, follow us on Facebook, and keep track of what we're doing.
And visit.
Yeah, you don't have to be Christian to come, but there's a lot of love, a lot of fun. Come visit us.
Beautiful. Well, thank you both for joining as guests, Paul. Yes.
Thank you, Joe, for being a great host.
It feels weird to host alone, but I just really
You did
appreciate both of you joining, and I look forward to, who knows, maybe around this time next year, we'll have an interesting wrap-up.
Maybe.
Maybe. So see you all hopefully next year.
Yep.
All right. Take care. Thank you. Today on this episode of The Story, TGIF and Born to Shine Christian Toastmasters. Goodness, it feels weird doing the hosting by myself. I'm just going to pretend Paul's here going, yeah, Joe, tell me about it. Anyway, it's been really fantastic to be able to have our incoming presidents, these new presidents, come share their stories And for me, the biggest takeaway is being able to take an honest look at your club, at your community, and really be thinking about where are the issues? How can we grow? How can we improve? Those conversations, friends, they're not easy. They're not easy conversations to have because you have to look at some areas where maybe you've stumbled a bit. And to grow, we need to be able to be honest. And I felt like this episode brought a lot of honesty, and I hope you felt that as well. The other big thing, too, is being able to recognize what you need to grow. And a big thing that we learned today is that it's excellence. And excellence is about what we heard from Eric, about preparation, being ready. Even if you think you can wing it, really take the time to prepare, because every moment we can speak, every moment we can share is important. And so be ready for it. Prepare. And then for Paul, excellence in all the small things, even the timer roll, the counter, every small thing. And to be able to do that, that's where you really start to see excellence. And I think that for all of us, especially for me, just being able to be host and listen to these stories, understanding that excellence is really important. And I hope that for you, whether you are an officer in a club, whether you're an area director, whatever role you have in life, even in a company, that you can take away something really powerful from today's message. Now, friends, those are all good things to remember, but there's one other thing to remember, and that is we are built on love and born to shine.